and welcome to the Fertility Conversations podcast. The goal of this podcast is to create more awareness about infertility and to provide support to people trying to conceive. Thank you for listening today, and we hope you will be encouraged. And now, here is your host, Ola.
Welcome to another episode of Fertility Conversations. Today we're joined by a lovely guest, Daniel. He's one of the co-founders of Men's Helpline. He joins us today to speak about his journey and also all about Men's Helpline and how we can support our men across the globe. So welcome, Daniel, and thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you, Ola, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yay, thank you. So we usually start off by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself as much as you want.
Sure. So I'll share a little bit about my background and my journey. So I'm now married 6 years. Before my wife and I got married, we did genetic testing. We found out that we were carriers for two of the same genetic conditions, which meant that we had to undergo IVF with PGD, pre-implantation genetic diagnosis. At the time, we were living in the United States, and we decided to move to Israel because actually in Israel, fertility treatments are actually covered. So we moved to Israel.
Oh, wow.
We did a round of IVF, which was successful. We did an embryo transfer. And then at 12 weeks into the pregnancy, we actually suffered a miscarriage.
Oh,
and
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was really hard at the time. But it really made me stronger. And then when that happened, I was completely all alone. My wife had all the support in the world. She had friends she could talk to. She had the support group she could go to. She had hotlines to call. You name it, she had it. I had absolutely nothing. I was completely devastated. The only thing I found was a random Facebook group that I had posted. And I said, is this really normal? All the feelings that I had, all the emotions. Right. And that led me to realizing that I'm not alone in this issue and that I was really looking for more meaning in my life. And I went back to school to get a master's degree in nonprofit management. I went back to school, and then as one of the courses I took, I actually started a support group for guys who have dealt with miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, and infertility. And that was very successful. And what I realized from that, talking to everybody in some of my professors and friends, that this is really such a diehard need because there is no support out there for men when it comes to these issues. So I started Men's Helpline. So we moved to Israel. Now I'll give you a little bit aside from background on myself. Aside from being a founder of Men's Helpline, I'm a volunteer EMT. So I drop everything that I'm doing and I go out to help another person who's in need of medical condition, whatever's needed.
That's amazing.
I'm a musician. I play the saxophone. I sing, I play piano, and now I have two kids, and living the dream, running Men's Helpline.
Wow, that's amazing! You're like a man of so many sides to you. Wow, the saxophone as well. That's pretty impressive. Should have asked you to play when you came over to the UK that time.
Yeah, next time.
Next time, yeah. Well, I'm so sorry about your loss. A loss at any stage is definitely devastating. But like you rightly said, there's often no support for men because, again, people are told the men should be strong. You should be strong for your partner. And the reality, like I said, it does impact men as well. So they do need support.
Yes, they definitely do.
So thank you for creating the Men's Helpline. So what do you do at the Men's Helpline?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
So right now, in terms of what we're doing, is we're really in a transition phase. But what the goal of the organization, how I created the organization, was to provide support for men when dealing with who are emotionally struggling on their journey to fatherhood, when dealing with miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, and infertility. So what we do, we have a podcast where guys can come onto the show and they share their stories and their journeys, and they give other advice to other guys. We have a Facebook group where guys can ask questions and get support from others. And then also on the other side of the coin, where it's not just support and having, fantasy sports leagues as well, but we also have are running awareness campaigns to bring awareness to male fertility issues and advocating for men's rights when it comes to dealing with a miscarriage, dealing with a stillbirth, dealing with infertility, because oftentimes men are just completely ignored. Nobody ever asks the guy, how are you doing? Nobody ever asked, what's your experience like, right? Men are just often pushed to the side. So we're creating awareness. We're doing education. We're educating the doctors about how do you approach men with these issues. We're doing advocacy, get-togethers. This is all in the support side of education, awareness, and advocacy, as well as support through support groups, Facebook and podcasts and Instagram and so on.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Thank you. And it's great for men to be able to have a resource or a place where they can reach out to and just connect with other people who understand what they're feeling and who understand the need for support as well.
And there's a tremendous need. Oftentimes, men don't even know what to ask or where to start or how to even deal with it. Many men, unfortunately, go down a really dark path after experiencing these issues. So we're trying to avoid that. I like to say, let's get you back to producing members of society, get you back to yourself the way you were before. Obviously, these issues, dealing with a miscarriage, dealing with infertility, it's very hard on you. So to have the resources and the tools to be able to deal with it is so important.
Yes, it is. And even with infertility, if you're going through fertility treatments, often again, the man is only called upon when it's time to just provide the sperm, and then that's it. And every other part, it must be hard, to go through all of that and just be like, you're not really a part of it. How is it for you?
So my agreement with my wife was I happen to be very active spouse. So I was at every single ultrasound. I was at every single blood work. I was at every single, fertility treatment appointment, follow-ups, the retrieval, the transfer. I actually was the one giving the shots to my wife.
That's nice.
So having a medical background definitely helps. But at the same time, taking that active role and having that communication of what is it that you want throughout the process and how you can get through this together as a couple is extremely important. So for us, she wanted me to give her the shots, and we would listen to her favorite music, and then I would do the shots, count to 10, do the shots. We would have a kind of our routine that we would do together.
That's really lovely. I think that really helps to make you feel like you're part of the whole process as well, right? You're not left out.
100%, because what happens with a lot of times with guys who don't necessarily do that, and it's no fault of them, because some guys, might not want to take a role like this. Some guys have different feelings and emotions, and you don't want to give your wife a shot. But at the end of the day, when you take that active role, it kind of steps it up a notch, that you feel like you're part of this process. You're there as not watching, you're taking an active role.
Right. And before you started Men's Helpline, during your own fertility journey with your wife, did you have other people around you that are going through something similar? Or how did you find support?
So, believe it or not, I didn't find support. I didn't really talk to people around me about it. I was the typical guy. I never thought that I would be going down this fertility journey. I never thought that I was going to have experience a miscarriage. Didn't have any real support at all. So the only really way I found out about it was actually being in it myself. I mean, I was part necessarily of a Facebook group at one point, but it wasn't until the 2-week wait during the fertility treatments after an embryo transfer that I really needed the support, and also after the miscarriage, right? Actually doing the process of the fertility treatments and doing the shots and everything, I was completely okay. There was a point at one point where I was freaking out myself, because there was a time the old doctors say you have to trigger at a certain time. So I actually had left a wedding that I was at because there was so much pressure. I had to be home to give the shot. And I gave the wrong dose. So I was
Oh
freaking
no.
out. I was freaking out. I'm like, what do I do here? I was calling a bunch of people, doctors, like, are we gonna miss the transfer date because I gave the wrong dose? But actually I had a window, okay, I could give it again and make sure the dose was correct. So there was some interesting time.
That must have been really scary.
It
Because
was.
I know about trigger shots and you're just so nervous. So to have that happen, wow. And I'm glad you were actually able to reach a doctor at that time, whenever that was.
Yeah, we actually reached out to, a few friends who were nurses and some people who we
Ah,
know and some doctors. Are like, yeah, it's totally fine. It's actually interesting. Some doctors give you their cell phone numbers or WhatsApp numbers. You can reach out to them actually. And
oh, that's good.
so it's important to have that communication. I guess obviously it depends on the country and the comfortability of that doctor, but I think it's really important to have your physician's number. This way, if any issues arise, you can reach out to them.
So well said. So I'm hoping that medical professionals listening right now will take that on board and provide that extra level of support, because it can be so stressful. Like the whole process, you just want reassurance sometimes.
Definitely.
So, well said. Thank you. And with this whole experience, you not having support, you not having anyone to speak to, and going through the loss and the whole fertility journey and having to go through treatment, how do you think all of that changed you as a person? And also, how did it impact your relationship with your spouse?
So, as a person, it made me stronger. I believe that everything in life happens for a reason. If it was not for going through the fertility journey because of the pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, right, having gone down that journey or having suffered a miscarriage at 12 weeks, I would not be the person who I am today. And I would not have started Men's Helpline. So it definitely changed me in that I can relate to men who are going through this and encourage them to talk about these issues, to end the stigma and to be comfortable. It's okay to cry. It's okay to have emotions. It's okay to get help. It's okay to utilize any support you can, take up an interest, take up a hobby. So I can relate to them a bit better and give advice to others going through it. And as far as relationship with my spouse, I definitely think it brought us closer together. I think a couple who's going through fertility treatments need to have a strong relationship from the get-go. And I think that's because it's really mentally and physically challenging. So the better communication you have with your spouse, the better success you're going to have, because it is stressful. So my communication with my wife went up significantly. I mean, we always talk all the time. We're very, very close. But having this special bond of doing this together, this journey together on the pursuit of becoming a father and having children, it took it to the next level, because you're dealing with different types of stresses. And if you can handle the fertility treatments, and if you could handle, unfortunately, having to deal with a miscarriage, then you can handle so many other things, any other challenge that's going to be thrown at you as a couple.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think it's so important that the people understand the impact that it really can have on relationships, and the importance of communication through the whole process. And everyone deals with infertility or loss differently, right? Because sometimes as a woman, you might want your spouse to speak more. I mean, if your spouse is a man, you might want him to, talk more about it and discuss, and the person might not want to talk about it. So even having that difference in the way people communicate their frustrations or loss can also cause a lot of friction.
It definitely can. And that's okay. Friction is okay. Obviously, you don't want to have so much friction, but it's okay to have disagreements or different approaches. But as long as you're able to talk it out with each other and to have an honest a conversation and not necessarily get angry or go to sleep angry over it.
Yeah.
That will happen, because men grieve differently than women.
Exactly. And men for men dealing with loss or fertility issues, having access to Men's Helpline can also be helpful, even for their relationship, right? Because if they have a support space where they can reach out to other men that understand, so perhaps there can be that outlet for those frustrations or concerns that they might not be able to speak about with their spouse, and then them come back to their spouse, they come as a better person, right? Because they're also supported outside by other people. And I know that with Men's Helpline, I remember that you spoke to me about that. Even you have options of men even getting together if they live in a close community or somewhere close to each other. Can you tell us a bit about that, about the options available?
So that's the dream. One of the dreams of Men's Helpline would be, let's say, because it's still in development, but let's say Dave and John are local and they both like playing soccer, right? And they just suffered a miscarriage at 12 weeks and gone through the infertility stage. Let's pair Dave and John up, let them go play a game of soccer, start the conversation and form that special bond as friends, but also as, let me have this buddy, this communication partner of the support that we can talk to one another about our journeys, about the challenges that we had faced, and then become a better spouse, and it just grows from there.
Yeah. That'd be actually, that's a great, and I hope that comes to that becomes a reality as part of the options that are available, because again, that can really help. Not to say that the sports takes away what's happening, but at least connecting with others again can be really helpful.
And it could be not just sport, but let's say someone's interested in music. Right? It could be, whether it be music, whether it be art, whether it be sport, whether it be hiking, whatever that special interest is that person has, you can find another person who is interested in the same things you are and have that mutual interest. And that mutual interest will create that soft spot where you could become friends and feel comfortable with one another. Or even if you're meeting up at a bar, just have that natural, the way men like to think about it is men oftentimes don't like mental health professionals. They don't necessarily want to go to a support group. They don't necessarily want, because there's a lot of stigma around it. They want natural settings. So as natural as possible to have these conversations, I think what'll happen is that more men will start opening up over a cup of coffee or over, over a beer, over sport, whatever their interests lie.
That sounds amazing. I'm looking forward to see how that becomes reality. And just to confirm, actually, because again, our listeners are from different countries, I wonder, with Men's Helpline, who can access it? Do they need to live in certain countries, or can anyone across the globe access and become a member?
So officially, we're a US-based nonprofit organization. However, being that this issue is not just a US-based issue, it's all over the world, it's an international issue. So people from all over the world can connect and can listen to the podcast, can come on as a guest, can join the Facebook group. And once we have this app available, they can download the app. I'm not an app developer, so I don't know what the stages are as far as how it'll be released. But this is a global issue. This is an international issue. It doesn't matter if you're in the UK, Nigeria, United States, Canada, Australia. It doesn't matter where in the world you are. You can still have this support. We are a resource for you. Share your stories, share your journeys, connect with us, connect with the other guys in the community who have gone through it. And remember, someone to your left, someone to your right probably has gone through it at some point, or they know somebody who has, because the statistics, 1 in 4 pregnancies end in a miscarriage and 1 in 6 couples struggle with infertility.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, and it's only growing.
Yeah, which means we need more support. And I mean, I think we just definitely, the work you're doing is amazing, and people just need to know that, to be aware that it even exists. It's an issue, and it's not just them, and that there's support out there, and that there are options as well. Because sometimes when you're not even aware that other people are experiencing something similar, you don't even know there are options. So you need to also be educated and being aware of options that are available, so that way you can decide how you want to proceed.
Absolutely.
So, well done. And as well, I think with men's infertility, either it's a male factor issue or whatever issue it is, how men are actually feeling. There's a lot of misconception about it, and people are not really sure, because again, the focus is always on women, just because they're the ones carrying the pregnancy, or most of the treatment is been targeted at the women. So for people listening, or just what would you like, what do you wish that more people knew about men's experiences with infertility and pregnancy loss?
I wish that throughout the process that men knew that just because you have to give a sample, or just because you necessarily don't have sperm or are struggling with male infertility, or throughout the process, I wish men knew that they're not alone and that you could talk about it, because the more we talk about it, the better we'll feel and the stigma will end. And I wish men out there knew that it's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about. And even if it's your spouse that's going through this journey, you're going through it together as a couple, and it's okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to experience, the laughter, find the joy in it, make jokes. I wish that people would understand, especially if you're going into this journey, know that it's okay to talk about it. Know that it's okay to cry about it. Know that you're not alone. And one of the things that I wish I knew, and I think this just needs to change in general in the world, is that the way we're taught, we need to be taught from a young age in the school system about what is infertility, what is miscarriage, what is secondary infertility, what is male factor infertility. These are conversations that I wish I had known early on, because never in my education, throughout high school, middle school, high school, college, when you take these health education classes, does this conversation ever come up? It's always the sperm meets the egg, and that's how a baby is made. Or, preventing sexually transmitted diseases. Never is the conversation about raising awareness so people are actually educated. I think if you're educated about what infertility is, or what a miscarriage is, and how you can actually deal with it, I think the stigma would end. I think people would have not necessarily a better experience going through it, but a more of an awareness and education of how to deal with it, and how to help yourself through it.
Yeah. So important. And for people just thinking, even across the globe again, with men's helpline. So if they do want to support you, support the work you're doing in being able to support men across the globe, how can they do that?
They can connect with us on Instagram, and our Instagram is at men's_helpline. They can go to our website, menshelpline.org. They can reach out to me, Daniel at menshelpline.org. Is my email address. They can send me a WhatsApp. They can go to our website and donate. There are many, many ways they can get involved. They can join the Facebook group. They can become part of the community, and keep sharing their stories and their journeys. I think that's the most important part, is to spread the word that there is support out there for men.
Yeah. And it's so needed. So it's good that it actually exists now. So well done. Thank you so much for all that you're doing.
My pleasure.
And for choosing, because again, infertility and pregnancy loss is so stigmatized. So even for you coming out to share and speak about it, you could have said, well, yes, we experienced a loss. Yes, we went through that whole process of having to go through fertility treatment, but we have our 2 kids now and we're fine. Why did you not? I think it's easier to just move forward with your life, right? Without having to think about this anymore. Knowing how stigmatized and so much taboo attached to it all. So why did you choose, in spite of all of that, in spite of the taboos and the stigmas, why did you choose to speak out and create the support space? Because again, you're done with this phase, right? Like you now have your family, quote unquote.
Well, we're never done. We still have frozen embryos, and at some point we will do another embryo transfer. We might need to do another round of IVF. So we're not necessarily done on our journey yet. But the reason I can't just stand alone and sit back and watch is because I know men are suffering in silence, and I cannot let that happen. I suffered, and even in a workspace environment, I suffered. I had a boss who just didn't care the fact that I had just gone through it. It was like, you have a quota to hit, you have to work, we have a business to run, just give me the space to heal. And I feel like a lot of men they need that space, because you don't want to go down the dark path of depression, suicide, getting addicted to alcohol, to drugs, to divorce, to addicted to pornography. I mean, there's so many dark, dark paths that when a guy goes through this that he can go to. So I want to make sure that that doesn't happen. And also being the fact that I'm a change maker. I'm very, entrepreneurial. So when I see an opportunity like this, it happened for a reason. And I
Yeah.
don't want men to be left alone in silence. I want to give them that space and that opportunity. And I want that awareness to be out there to the world that when you're going through this experience, that things need to change in the industry. Men need to be looked at from an appropriate way. I mean, a crazy story happened to me in the hospital when we were going through the retrieval process and I had to give my sample. I followed just the process of how it even happened. I followed little sperm fish on the floor to a room and I had to give a sample and someone walked in on me. And then
Oh, wow.
I walked over the sample to a room and there's a sign that says it's a great day to make a baby. So the experience for men, when I see what I went through and when I hear what other guys are going through, this experience, I think men need to be more involved in the process, and clinicians out there need to understand and involve the men, even if they're miscarriages. They need to ask the guy, how are you doing? How are you managing? How can I support you through it? I know it sucks and it's not an easy thing to go through, but they need to involve the men in the process, because what's happening is that it's not just the woman going through. The men are sitting there watching and experiencing this trauma. And yes, we might not physically be experiencing it, but we are there watching it firsthand.
Thank you for sharing that. It's so important that people know that. And I think even like you said, I think that again, general society always assumes that once you have your child or children, that somehow infertility is gone, right? We don't actually realize that, yes, people might have their children, but infertility lingers on. That whole feeling, there's a lot of PTSD for many people. The journey to getting there and the losses that ever happened still stays with you. So it's never actually gone, though it might appear to the general public that, you've done this phase, now you've moved on. So I think it's important, like you said, that it's still there and you never actually know, even if you see that someone has one child or two or three, whatever the case might be, you're not sure what the whole process they might still be dealing with. Like you said, frozen embryos, that's an important conversation that people often don't have. Some people might decide that, yes, they want to have more kids. Some people might decide, what do I do with those frozen embryos? So it's, again, all these conversations are very important and for people to have a safe space to have those conversations. So.
And it's not just that. I mean, there are other areas where guys need the support as well. Is oftentimes, this is not even talked about so much, is dealing with secondary infertility, where we already have a child and now you're struggling, you want to have another child, you're struggling to conceive that second child. So the support for secondary infertility and the conversation around secondary infertility also needs to be had.
Yeah.
Because just because it looks like somebody has a child and they're a happy family, you don't know what's going on the inside. You don't know if they're struggling to conceive or have had any miscarriages. People don't know their stories.
No. And it's just that's why you just never know. Even with 2, even with 3, with 4 kids, you don't know, because again, people have the right to choose how many kids they want to have. So again, having this conversation and having a safe space to have those conversations are important, because again, to the general public, if they saw you struggle or go through infertility and loss, and they see that you now have 3 or 4 kids, and they don't understand that you're trying to have the 5th or 6th one, whatever the case might be, it might not be easy to have that conversation with people that don't understand. So having a safe space for others that get it, that yes, you might have the child or 2 or 3 already, but you want to have more and you're not able to, is also very important. So thank you for creating this space. Again, Men's Helpline is so needed and across the globe. And I know certainly many people in Nigeria will definitely will welcome this initiative that you have on this community, and knowing that their spouses, their partners, they can refer them to you or to your support space is really helpful. So thank you.
Thank you.
And as a wrap up, are there any words of encouragement that you'd like to share, or anything else that you'd like to share with any man or woman or anyone listening from wherever across the globe
So
who's experiencing fertility or loss?
Words of inspiration, I would say, one, keep talking about it. Be open-minded. See what you can do together as a couple. Distractions are great, but obviously it doesn't take away from the issue. Take on a hobby, speak to a friend about it. The more you have the conversation, the better it is. And two, keep your head up and try and stay as optimistic and as positive as possible. Yes, this cycle may work, it might not work, but this is your path. This is your journey. You're on the journey to fatherhood. And no matter what happens, if it's not this round, it might be the next round. It might be the one after that. Mm-hmm. Try and stay as positive as possible, because when you keep that positivity and that optimism, that'll carry you through the next rounds of IVF, of that IUI, of that miscarriage, if it God forbid happens. That positivity will help you throughout. And remember, it's okay to cry. It's okay to share your story. You're not alone. And to everyone out there, remember, you're not alone. So many people have gone through this, and many will continue to go through it. Just keep sharing your stories, talking about it. The more you talk about it, the better you will feel. Keep raising awareness. I mean, that's really all I can say in terms of inspiration is talk about it as much as possible. Be open about it as much as possible. See a therapist if you feel the need to. There are resources for there, and we're here to help you. You're not alone.
Thank you for those inspirational words, Daniel. And they are very important, again, because, when you share your stories, you never know. You hear somebody else that's going through something similar. Perhaps their stories, perhaps the options they sought out might help you as well. So thank you.
And you never know what that person might know, right? Who they might know.
Exactly.
And it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been really amazing having you on here, Danielle, speaking about your story, your journey. Thank you for being so open and for choosing to share your story, for choosing to start Men's Helpline, for choosing to encourage these conversations and to be a support for people going through infertility and loss across the globe. It really is important that people have a safe space to connect with others who get it. So thank you for creating that safe space and for all that you're doing and for what you're, the ideas that you have for Men's Helpline and the app and all that you're doing to support. It really is appreciated. And it's been really insightful having you on here. I know that lots of people listening have been encouraged, maybe for themselves or for their partners. And it helps in the whole process, even for the female partners, knowing that their men are better supported, helps the relationship, helps the whole journey. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I will definitely be looking forward to having you again in the near future and to have that IG Live of ours very soon.
Looking forward.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Fertility Conversations podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a 5-star rating and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram at Fertility Conversations. If there are any topics you would like to have discussed, please send an email to fertilityconversations@gmail.com. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. Thank you again for listening. Take care of yourself and do stay hopeful.